Do y'all have a purpose when you get up in the morning?
Yes, sir.
You need to. If you don't have a purpose, you have no reason to get up. You just soon sleep. I have a purpose every morning about 5:30. I want to go to bed about 9:30, 10 o'clock, but I have a purpose. I hope that this industry has a purpose. I can assure you that Georgia Federal State has a purpose. We meet pretty often to make sure that we're fulfilling our purpose. And we really have to satisfy that commission of the Department of Agriculture, and we also have to satisfy a board that tells us what we need to be doing. Many of you don't know me, so I'm going to give you a little background of who I am, what I've done. I want to tell you I've been involved with every farm bill since 1970. Now, farm bills used to be pretty easy when you had Senator Talmadge from Georgia and Senator Helms from North Carolina. All you had to do was satisfy Senator Helms a little bit with the North Carolina peanut. They grew a different kind of peanut than Georgia did. But if you got those two satisfied, you got your farm bill. Senator Talmadge finally put the food nutrition into the farm bill, and we had no issues from that point on with the farm bill. Now we're having issues again. I produced, harvested, and marketed 51 peanut crops, or it'd be 51 this year. So I know what to do about growing peanuts. I've been actively involved. I hadn't driven a tractor in several years, but I still can if I can figure out how to do that screen over there to make it go. I inspected peanuts at Newton Peanut Company when I was 4 years. I was two at ABAC and 2 at University of Georgia. So I know that process. I saw what went on firsthand in the grade room. You did it on a note sheet. I could figure it in my head what the grade was going to be before you got through. Philip Sutton said he could too. So that's where we were at that time. In August, I will be with the company 10 years. It seemed like 3. Can you click it too, or do I need to click it? What does Georgia Federal State do? We started grading vegetables in 1927, started grading peanuts officially in 1957. In and around that year, now I talked to my ally Larry Cunningham to get some of these numbers. His information came a lot from his memory from his dad. But what we are, we're a third party, we're unbiased to give a grade of peanuts. We don't work for the sheller, we don't work for the farmer. We only work for USDA to put that USDA certificate on some peanuts to tell you what you got. Today I want to show you what the grading procedure is. Every ton of peanut is not the same quality. I don't know one ton is the same as other. They're different. We grade on a USDA sanctioned program built by the USDA, and we carry it out under the Georgia Department of Agriculture. All peanut states use this same program, and that has not always been the case. Well, that happened in about 12 or 13. Timeline of the grading process. I'm going to spend a little time on this to let you know where we were. Prior to 1966, the individual that owned the buying point, and he usually owned a sheller, determined what the value of a ton of peanuts was worth. And I'll get into it later, but you're exactly right. They didn't take many peanut hulls to figure out what it was. In 1967, we had the inspectors to come into the program. And they graded on a note sheet and used a calculator to determine the grade. 1959, the University of North Carolina State University built and patented the grading equipment that we have today. But the inspectors still pull the peanuts with an idiot stick. And I think probably not many of you in here that know what an idiot stick is. You didn't take but one day running it to figure out what it was. It was tough to run. All manual. In 1960, the pneumatic sampler came out. It was built by Georgia Tech. You understand, North Carolina State built the equipment, Georgia Tech built the pneumatic sampler. We still use a pneumatic sampler today. Everybody thinks it generates LSKs, and it probably does some. And it just sucks all the sand and all the trash in that tube. It blows down the outer part of the tube and pushes the product back up the inner tube. And it goes into the sampling process. Larry tells me it was about 1963 before most of the buying points got the pneumatic sampler installed. And what happened in 1977, don't many know, can't remember 1977, but I see some that's nearly as old as I am. But that's when you really change the grading process, and the fact that you quit using note sheets and you used numbered 95s and numbered 1007s. Where they used to, you do it on that rough notes, and you didn't like that one, you just pulled it all through it in the trash can and started over. Well, now you have to number them. And not only do we keep those numbers in our possession, it goes to Kansas City and it comes back to us, and we store it for 5 years. After 5 years, we put it on the computer. In 2000, the computer did all the calculations, took the human element out. And I think that's when things really changed, when it fixed it where you could not change what a grade was once you got it started through the process. Now, you might have pulled it wrong out at the sampler, and you might have cut it down wrong, and you might have done all these things wrong, but once you put it in the process of getting it in and weighing it on the scales, it went to the computer, and the computer figured it all. Came a long way as far as I'm concerned at that time of the year. In 2011, we updated computers and generated the 95. 2014 updated the computer program and added eNuts. eNuts is a program that the farmers can use. Within 20 minutes, you can pull it up on your iPhone and figure out what your peanuts are doing that day. Again, I'll tell you how I use it on our farm. Around 2015, the automatic sampler was developed and approved. We ran it at Fudge and Colquitt, and also the pulsating divider was during that same time, which is an excellent tool because it takes the element of splitting the peanuts to getting two samples that are the same or divided pretty much the same. Takes a human element out of it again. And I know y'all have seen our people out there splitting a load. Well, if you got that pulsating divider, you don't have to do that. 2019 started testing the camera system. Georgia Tech did that. And this will have to be for another day to tell you where the grading equipment is going, and also testing on the in-shell moisture machine. I hope I'm on the right page. SC, the U.S. government likes acronyms, and all that is specialty crops. That's who runs the peanut section of the USDA is the specialty crops division. Not all of them do that, they do cucumbers, tomatoes, pecans, blueberries, all the other ones. That's where we put the information on the grade sheet, is that SC 95. Again, it's numbered. If you tear one up, if you mess one up, you got to keep it and keep it on file, and where we'll know what happened to it. You can supersede it. You can go over if something happens. What else does it have on there? Doesn't have the buying point manager's name on there. It's got the inspector's name on that certificate. So it tells the farmer and tells the sheller that it was inspected by a licensed inspector. I'm going to give you the information on what is on those. And that's the components that we give. I'm going to hit them very fast. Farm material, LSK, moisture, clean sample, total kernels riding screen, damage, kernels riding screen, sound splits, other kernels, damage splits, hulls, freeze damage, concealed, rancid, mold, and decay. And we're going to hit some of them as we go along and talk to you about what makes you money and what costs you money. You look at the farm material, the LSK loose shell kernels, the moisture, total sound material kernels, other kernels, damage, hulls, and then we're going to go from that point and transfer the information from the SC95 to the 1007. We don't do the 1007, but I want to show you the that's the SC95. I know you can't see it real good, but it tells you the amount of the farm material, and this was a farmer, and this is an actual grade. You don't see many grade this well. 1% farm material, 3% LSK, moisture 9%, freeze damage none. But look at the sound material kernels, 75%, sound splits 5%, so it was an 80 grade. You had 2% other kernels, total kernels 82%, and hulls was 18%. That is an excellent grade. Now, if you'll remember that report, and then you will see it down at the, you see that little red line right there? That's the 1007. That's an actual 1007, actual farmer from actual buying point. We blacked out all the names. Then the information is handled on that 1007 is handled by the buying point. They take the information off of that SC95 that you see on the left with the signature of the inspector on it, and then they figure all the things. Now, they might have dried peanuts for you and might have done some other things, and they'll have all that listed on that. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on that process, but you can see that that things are official, and all those things are owned by the government in our possession in Albany. Now, I want to give you a breakdown on things that's what really kills a farmer and what we try to get the farmers to understand, and also the buying point understands this very clearly too. What does the farm material do? It directly affects growers' value per acre. The people that I sell to know that if it goes over 4%, they clean them. I look at those E-Nuts program every afternoon, and I tell the guys that's running the pickers, you got to turn the fan up. The farm material's running too much. I don't want to sell 4% I don't want to have to, 4% of what's in a semi-trailer, I don't want to be deducted. I want it to be all peanuts. I'd rather for it to be that 1%. It's costing you money. What else is costing you money? The LSKs. How much are they worth, Carl? 7 cents, aren't they? 7 cents a pound. I've always argued with them a little bit. Sheller's going to put most of those right on into the fold, aren't you? That's what I thought. But anyway, they're going to pay you 7 cents for it. What are they going to pay you for a $400 ton peanut? They're going to pay you, well, 20 cents a pound if you figure 400. So you see what you're killing yourself? If you have over 3% LSKs, you're selling 3% of your crop for a third of what it should be. If it's 10%, you're selling 10% of your crop. And I'm going to show you some figures in a little bit to show how much it's going to cost you. These grade factors are determined by the grading process by our inspectors, and they sign the document. I keep saying that signed. Don't ever get it out of your mind that you want a third party signing that document. And I'll talk about that in a little bit too. The buying point takes information, puts it on 1007. And then we've talked about sound splits. If they don't matter, let's petition the Specialty Crops Division of USDA to take it out. It's no problem. We can change our software program in 5 minutes to take the sound splits out, Carl. It's no problem. Yep. We can take it out. And then it can all be total sound mature kernels. If that's what you want, that's what you want to sell. But anyway, if it goes over 4%, they're going to deduct so much per ton. And there's a chart that goes down and shows you how much is being deducted from that. It's not about 40 cents a ton per percent. It's not a real backbreaker. All right, I want to go. I had to decide what size buying point did I want to take and look at. So I said I want every buying point that was from 20,000 tons to 30,000 tons. We put them in a hat. I drew a buying point out. This is the buying point that I'm going to tell you on what peanuts graded that year. And if you'll see the 19 year, the average farm material was 4%. The maximum was 25%. I don't know how you could get 25% in there, but apparently that's the case. You people don't buying points, that's probably not a mystery to you, but it is fact. LSK's average was 3, but the high was 34%. Sound splits average was 3.3%, but your maximum was 31%. Other kernels, and I despise them. I think that's where a lot of your A-flavus mold is found, and I think that's a lot of where your aflatoxin is found, is immature kernels. That's just from T.E. Moye now, that's not from USDA or Georgia Department of Agriculture. Other kernels average 3.2%, 15% max, but I want y'all to look at that. Total sound mature kernels is where you make your money. Do y'all see that one on the left-hand side over there? It graded a 20. I made them go pull the 95 and the 1007 and let me look at it. It was a man that grew a 20. The maximum at that buying point was 81. And I'm going to show you the difference between a 70 and a 78 in just a little bit. But they bought 25,966 tons. I'm not going to go into, y'all can read it as well as I do. My wife asked me why it was different in 20 and 21. And I told her I'd been growing peanuts 51 years, and I don't think not one crop was the same. I don't believe 80 certainly wasn't, 77 certainly wasn't, 90 certainly wasn't. All of y'all old enough to remember, y'all remember those years? Straight droughts. It was just different. But anyway, they were consistent with their tons, though. They got 25,749. Using that same buying point, example of dollar value, I better get my little slide presentation on over there. One of the worst things that ever happened to me was these glasses. You can't see with them and can't see without them. But anyway, I based on the government loan rate at $350 a ton, and I know it may be just a little different with that. But if your peanuts graded 78% total sound mature kernels with 2% other kernels, they would bring $380.71 a ton. If they graded 70 total sound mature kernels with 2 other kernels, they were worth $341.95. And y'all say, well, how can they be less than the loan? Because the value on them was less. And then I want to show you some real figures. If you take the difference in those two grades, it was $38.76 a ton. If you are a 2,000 ton producer that brought you in $77,520 more. Now I'm assuming that'd be about a 700-acre farmer, peanut farmer. That's a good bit of money. How much is that an acre? About $100 an acre, isn't it? A little over. The better the incoming product, the better the outgoing product. 19 was terrible, and 20 was a lot better. But I want to tell y'all, we grade the peanuts and the condition and quality and condition on that day. I can assure you that they don't get any better when they go in a warehouse. We've had one warehouse that we've checked, and that's Larry Cunningham's. Less than 0.03% different when he went in and when he went out. So Larry Cunningham apparently got a good warehouse. All warehouses are not the same. I want to tell you how you can, a way by which your peanuts gain value. Y'all heard of these land grant institutions? Auburn, Clemson, University of Florida, Mississippi State, University of Georgia. That's the ones that we are in here today. University of Georgia was established in 1914. Who knows who the head of the University of Georgia Extension is? Laura Perry Johnson. Do y'all know where she's from? Moultrie, Georgia. If you don't think she'll listen to you, all you got to do is call her. Now, their delivery system, or USDA's, or the University of Georgia's delivery system to get information to the farmer, and I'm going to say Georgia, it's the same thing in every state, is the Extension Service. The Extension Service can add value to your crop if you'll listen to what they got to say. In Georgia, the Extension Service or a buying point, or a combination thereof, will take a sample of every farm, every farmer, every farm, every field, if that's what you want. Now, you may not like what they tell you. I get ready to plow out peanuts a whole lot quicker than our county agent wants to plow out peanuts. But they can put them on that board that they got, and they can tell you they 3 days off. Again, y'all remember those numbers at 77,000? All you got to do is listen to that extension agent, and he can tell you when that peanut's ready to dig. I don't even look at them to about 145 days. I think all those systems are good. Now, I want to give you, that's pretty simple, isn't it? Say, okay, we're going to go to the buying point there in Patmos. Lanier's going to run the test on it. Say, okay, TE, they ready to plow out in 3 days. And you may get them plowed up. But in 51 years, I have found out very clearly that it may be 4 weeks before you get them picked, if the rain sets in just right. Now, that crop's value has changed. When you don't pick it the 3rd day after you plow it up, it changes. Now, the reason I pick 3 days is because that's when you make the best peanut hay for your cows, and I do everything for a cow. If it's growing peanuts or whatever it is, I want the best quality peanut hay, and that's 3 days. So that's the reason I pick 3 days. Pay a little more for drying at 3 days. This program we will give and have given to VOAG groups, to extension groups, to all groups all over the state of Georgia. And Teresa Cox will come and do that and show you that program, and everybody should be able to do that same program. Dollar value per ton. I'm going to go back to you talking about those few hulls of peanuts. In 1956, I helped my daddy load peanuts in the back of a pickup truck, had them in bags. Y'all ever remember bagging? You probably even remember bagging peanuts with a Roanoke peanut picker. You do. But you set them down in the field and you let them dry as long as you could, and then you put them in a truck and you took them to the market. And the man that owned the buying point went out there and said, well, Mr. Moye, I believe they're worth about this much. Well, we started on the way back home. And he was telling me, you see that farm right there? I said, yes, sir. I said, that man we just sold those peanuts to owns that. I said, is that right? You see that farmer right there? The windows rotted out of his house? I said, yes, sir. I said, well, things have got to change on how we grade peanuts. Now, I don't think my daddy had anything to do with it. And now the flip side of that. My wife worked for Mitchell EMC, and her boss, Daddy, worked with the inspection service in the Osceola area. And he said it wasn't nothing to get a $20 bribe. I didn't ask him whether he took the bribe or not. Again, y'all remember those note sheets I was telling you about? Larry Cunningham called them rollers and sliders. You remember telling me that, Larry? That was a long time ago. So I'm not going to tell you that there were not some things corrupt on both sides. I think there were some at the buying point. I think there were some with the inspectors. But this computer program has changed that. Y'all, I hope that we have gotten past something going wrong at a buying point or something going wrong with the inspector. I tell them all when I talk to them, I said, you may go to jail with your signature on there, but I'm not, because we're going to inspect it like it's supposed to be inspected. Now, we don't have but one person in the same position today that I was when I came to Georgia Federal State. That's 10 years ago, one person. That person is John Sellers, the manager of the Albany District, John. So I'm telling you, as a farmer and as a sheller, you need to be careful who's going to determine the value. I think it needs to be a third party, and we at Georgia Federal State will promise you that we'll work with any group to do anything to try to make the inspection service better or things better for the farmer. I told Mr. George Birdsong, the first time I met him, I said, Mr. George, you know I'm a farmer at heart, and I'm gonna make sure that things are fair for him. I'm also gonna make sure that they're fair for you. And I think that's the way we've run this organization these years. I'm looking forward for the industry getting better, and I hope that it will.